Hi there, my name is Adam Boxer. I'm the Education Director at Carousel Learning. And in this teaching and learning training video, I'm going to be talking to you about whole class feedback. We're going to talk about what it is, we're going to talk about why to do it, and we're going to talk about how you implement it in the classroom. Now, it's instructive at this point to actually, not everyone necessarily even knows what the phrase whole class feedback means. So what we're going to do is we're going to just trace a little bit of history. And the first thing I want you to do is I just want you to read some of the text that's going to appear on the board here. And what I'd like you to do is just in your head, just try and think or guess what year this was written. So whenever I ask for this in training sessions, I get a massive range. Some people think it was written, within the last couple of months, and it's now 2022. One person thought it was written in the 1970s. In fact, this was written in 2016 by the DfE. DfE commissioned a workloads survey, and one of the things they were looking at was marking. And what they found is that it's marking, there's not much evidence to suggest it's a good thing. A lot of teachers spend a lot of time doing it, but it's not reflected in pupil progress. That was followed around the same time by an Education Endowment Foundation report into marking, which was called a marked improvement, where they looked into the evidence on marking to see, try and figure out if there was much to go on here, and they didn't find a lot. And what they said is that the amount of marking that goes on is not in proportion with the evidence to support it as a good thing. Now, I imagine most teachers watching this will have their own kind of horror stories or experiences or personal history with marking. In my career personally, so I'm a science teacher, and I have been, for almost 10 years now, and I've worked in a number of different schools with a number of different marking policies, where you have to take books home and mark them. And a lot of time that turns into just, tick and flick, where you're just ticking, you're not really reading stuff, you're just sort of skimming it at best, just putting a tick here or a cross there, or sometimes you might put a comment like why or how. And then a lot of the time, there's non-constant time increases. What I mean by this is that I'll take like 30 books home, and the first book would take me a couple of minutes to mark, and by the time I got to the last book, it's taking me like 10 minutes because I'm just staring at it, and like my mind's just gone completely blank. Like I can't focus, I can't concentrate. So when people are like, how long does it take you to mark? I'm like, well, it depends. The first book, not so long. The last book is quite a while. It's very repetitive. I'm finding myself writing the same thing a lot. And then in class, not really finding the time to go over the marking. So I'd give the kids their books back, and, we've got pressures of curriculum. We don't really find the time to get over it. And also sometimes the problem is like, I'd be writing comments like why or how, and the kids just didn't know. But I'd have written why for one kid about one thing and how for another kid about another thing. And I'd find, lots of kids with hands up and just waiting for me, and I'd be going around and I'd be having to go back into their paragraph to try and figure out what it was I was trying to get from them. And by the time you've just got a class that's completely dead because you're having to reinvest all of that time. You're having to go back with the student to try and figure out what they need to do next, and they haven't got a clue what's going on. And sometimes you're asking them to do stuff, and they don't know. They're like, well, if I knew how to do that, I would have done it the first time. That kind of thing. So very, very frustrating. And it then got tied up a lot with accountability. People would be coming into my class and they'd be saying, why aren't the books marked? Where's the marking? And I'm like, well, why? Like, who cares? Like, I'm doing all this other amazing stuff. Like, why can't you talk about that? Or there's some things that I don't do that I think are way more important. You observe my lesson, and I didn't use mini whiteboards the whole way through the lesson. And the thing that you're picking me up over is that I don't have any marking. I'm like, mini whiteboards are way more powerful. And I'm like thinking to myself, I can't believe I didn't use the mini whiteboards that lesson. I can't believe that's the feedback that you're giving me. And then it became very toxic, and we'd have, book scrutinies, and people would be, not marking, and then taking bags of books home to do over the weekend and up late at night. And yeah, it just became pretty bleak, to be honest. And there was this other thing which was like the tail wagging the dog, where we were told we had to mark a piece of work every fortnight or whatever. And what we did is we devised a piece of work to give to the kids that would be easy to mark. And it's just like completely the wrong way around. It's like, you shouldn't be making your resources because they're easy to mark. It just didn't make any sense. And I just very much felt like I wasn't achieving anything. I was spending so much time on this marking, and I just wasn't really getting anywhere. Now, Joe Kirby is a blogger. He's an English teacher and a blogger, and he wrote a blog as far back as 2015. So it's even before the DFE thing. And he made this really amazing conceptualization. He put two axes together. And along this one, you've got increases impact on pupils, and up here you've got reduces workload for teachers. And what he was always looking at is the zone that's kind of down here and the zone that's kind of up here. The zone that's down here is stuff that has very little impact and has quite a high workload. So things that you spend a lot of time on, but doesn't result in improved outcomes. And he called those things hornets. And he said that marking is down here as a hornet. It's a bad thing. It has very limited impact, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. The stuff that's up here is where you want to be aiming, and he called those things butterflies. And he said that feedback is a butterfly because, you know, you give feedback and you can move students on, and it doesn't necessarily have to take a lot of time. You know, you could, you know, in the middle of a lesson, you know, a kid says something isn't right, and you say, no, you know, sorry, a kid says something that isn't right, and you tell them that's not right. Like that's feedback, and it helps them because you've communicated to them something that is clearly wrong. You then explain to them what the right thing is. It's not huge, you know, there's no work involved, but it can really help the student. And always what we're trying to do is move from doing stuff that's down here in the hornet zone to doing stuff that's up here in the butterfly zone. So to sum everything up, marking's become a really big burden. It's a drain on people's time. And a lot of time it's tied up with accountability, and it's become almost severed, disconnected from student outcomes. Okay. Whole class feedback came in sort of against this backdrop, and it came from a group of teachers who were trying to find a different way to do it. And essentially what whole class feedback is instead of writing a comment on any individual student's work and then all of the attendant problems to do with time and follow up and all of that, what you do is you take the kids' work in and you just have a read through it. You just, you know, you'd read through a particular essay, you'd check through them, and you'd have a separate piece of paper where you'd note common errors, common issues. And on a simple level, there might be spelling. On a more complex level, it might be misconceptions or things that students weren't including in their essays, or structure or form, or whatever it was. But the idea was that you'd then take that feedback and you'd go into the class and you'd use that feedback, and it wouldn't be voluminous. You're talking like 2 or 3 major points, and you'd use that feedback to push the whole class forward, to try and improve the whole class. And you might have to do some re-explaining, some reteaching, another model, some more practice, and then you'd have all of the students improving their own work and reflecting on the stuff that you'd spoken about as a group. And you know, there's a number of advantages to doing it like this. The first thing is it can take less time because you don't necessarily, you know, you've got 30 kids, you don't necessarily need to look at everyone's. By the time you've gone through the first 6 or 7, like, you're going to be able to find actionable, high impact feedback that's going to work for everybody. So it can take less time. You don't end up repeating yourself because you're only writing it down once. You're not having to write the same thing again and again. When you do that feedback, because you're giving it to the whole class, you can be clear about it. There's no, like, a kid isn't going to be like, what does my feedback on my thing mean? And you go to that kid and 29 other kids are kicking off, and then you get to the next kid and the next kid, next kid trying to explain. You know, you lose all of that. What else? Also, so something that I've noticed is that when you're doing marking, if I've marked something as, you know, given a tick in a kid's book or whatever, and I still want them to improve it, they're just not going to like listen or pay any attention. They're like, this bit doesn't apply to me. Whereas what you do with whole class feedback is you say this applies to everybody. Everybody needs to be listening. Everybody needs to be focused. It will drive up everybody's outcomes. It will help absolutely everybody in this room. And also for me, something that's really important is that it helps me build something I've been thinking about a lot recently is how I build a culture in the classroom, like a feeling of community and fraternity in the classroom, that kind of we're all in this together. And whole class feedback really helps kind of deliver that message and build that sort of culture. And we'll see a few examples of what I mean by that a bit later on. So here's a nice little summary that's been put together of the differences between marking and whole class feedback, which I'll just let you read for a second. So for me, whole class feedback is a no-brainer. It's way better, and just don't get me wrong. Yeah, a misconception around whole class feedback is it means you don't look at the student's work, right? You are looking at the student's work, but when you do that and how you do that is different. So you might just take 6 or 7 books. You might just be reading as the class is going on and just walking around and looking at responses. You know, we'll see in a minute how we do it through Carousel, but that you are looking at their work and you are getting information about it. You're just not writing an individual written comment on every book, as you don't have every student with a different target, or even groups of target. It's like 1 thing or 2 things or 3 things for the whole class that everybody needs to do. We're building that sense together that we're kind of working together and there's mutual improvement going on. When we were building Carousel, we get Carousel to do this. Yeah, we have a way that Carousel can help us deliver whole class feedback. And when we were figuring out how to do that, we had a number of considerations. And this is all based on everything I've shown you so far. So first, we definitely wanted to cut teacher workloads. I'm a teacher, I teach 4 days a week. I work on Carousel 1 day a week. Like, I'm very much interested in cutting workload. And at Carousel, we did not want to make anything that made teachers' lives harder. Often technology platforms, like not consciously, but they end up making things harder for teachers. So we definitely did not want to do that. And sorry, it's not just that we didn't want to make things harder, we wanted to make things easier. We actively wanted to go against that kind of incremental process of teachers having more and more and more things to do. We wanted to make sure that we were getting meaningful feedback and that we were supporting teachers to deliver that. We're a retrieval practice platform. We love retrieval practice. We love quizzing. We know it's the best way for students to learn things. And we wanted to give students the chance to do a retrieval practice, to have retrieval practice episode again. That was important to us. We wanted to bring up student accountability. So we're a homework platform. We're not a homework platform. We're a platform that is used for homework. We do a lot of other stuff as well, but like the bread and butter is the kids doing the quizzing at home. And what we wanted to do is everything we try and do, all of the training we deliver is about increasing the number of students who are doing the homework and the quality with which they're doing it. And part of that is student accountability, about holding students to account for the quality of their response and the quality of their learning. And it's not necessarily in a punitive way. It's not like we're saying, you know, if your learning is no good, you'll have detention. It's that they know we're looking, that they know we're paying attention, and that they know that we want them to be doing really, really well. And we'll hold them to account if they're not doing that well. And one of the most powerful tools that we have in our armory for supporting homework is about integrating classwork with homework. Students, we talk about it the whole time at Carousel, that students tend to think of homework as like a bolt-on, as something that they've got to do, but they don't really understand why. They see it as a check, you know, something teachers set because it's their job to set it, or because their parents will complain. They need to sit and do it as quickly as they can, and end of story. And one of the things that we're big on is integrating the classwork with the homework to show the students that it's an extension of the classwork, and all of the attitudes and cultural norms and mores that we have in the class around achievement, around effort, around persistence, around hard work, that applies just as much at home as well. So we wanted to do those 5 things, and kind of underpinning that is our Retrieving Better training document. So this is a teaching and learning CPD guide to doing good retrieval practice, and it provides the philosophical underpinnings for how we think about how we're going to support teachers to do better retrieval in class. And there'll be a link to the Retrieving Better. Oh, well, actually, I think I've got a picture of it. There we go. That's our Retrieving Better document. It's now, what's the date? It's now the 14th of March, and we're on version 1 of Retrieving Better, and people are giving us feedback so we can improve it for version 2. We'll provide you a link for that, and please, if you do have any feedback on it, please just let me know so that I can make version 2 even better and even more useful. Cool. So right, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go into Carousel to show you how we actually do it. Okay, so I'm now in my dashboard, my Carousel dashboard. I'm hoping you're familiar with this. If you're not, by the way, we have plenty of help guides and documents. Just go onto the website and press the help button. There's loads of stuff there. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at this quiz here. So this is a Year 5 science quiz that I've set, and I can see that 9 students have done it. And I can click on that and see, which students, well, yeah, these guys have done it. Kyan's not done it. Sophie's not done it. It's a problem, right? Fine. Okay, I can look at this quiz. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to these 3 dots here. These are called meatballs. So I'm going to click on those, and I'm going to press feedback over here. Now, what this does is it takes me to a screen that looks like this. We're just going to look at this top part for now, and we'll do the bottom part soon. So just have a look around at that for a second. Okay, so let me take you through the bits. So first, I've got a title, of course, it's my feedback report. I've got an average score up here, so that's the average of the whole group. Now, 71% is not bad. I generally think, as a rule of thumb, following Rosenshine's principles of instruction, should be aiming for about 80%, but basically anything between 70 and 90 is good. If it's too high, then the quiz is probably too easy. If it's too low, the quiz is probably too hard, and you're just going to be demotivating the students. It's interesting also to see the top score. This is useful again for building my culture as a class, because that stuff that I said about aiming for like 70 to 90% or 80% as a sweet spot, you then tell that to the kids, right? You tell the kids that, look, one student, 2 students, a bunch of students got 100% in this. If you didn't get 100% in this, there's no reason that you shouldn't be. Look around you. There's no one in this class who's smarter than you. There's no one in this class who's better than you. You can get 100% too. You just need 2. And then you go over your steps and you tell the students how you want them to prepare. So when it's me, I tell them you just need to, you've done the quiz once, you've seen you got 75%, so it's no good, it's not good enough. You go back to the flashcards, you go over your flashcards again, you speak out your answers, you write down your answers, you get your parents to test you, you get your brother to test you, whoever it is, you get someone to test you at home, you go back into the quiz and you smash 100%. And then I'll be so proud of you. All of that stuff, yeah. And again, it's about building that like culture and feeling in the class. It's about saying, look, this excellence, this culture of excellence is what you want. Now, here what it does is it gives me the questions that the students that had the lowest scores. So, the score in this one, only 44%, 5 got it wrong, 4 got it right. The score was weak, score was weak on these 3. And normally it'll bring 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 5. It depends, if you've got 2 questions that both had the same scores, it'll bring both of them, whatever. Now, when my students come into the room, this is on the board, and that's their starter, that's their do now, that's their whiteboard quiz. They come in, they open their books, they go to the back of their book, they've been drilled, they know the routine, they write the date, and then they just answer these 3 questions. Now, the reason why I choose these questions is, and I explain this to students, I say, okay, guys, down pens, okay, everyone down pens when they're finished. I say, okay, guys, down pens. Now, can somebody tell me why did I pick, what are these questions? Where are these questions from? And they can say, oh, it's from the quiz. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, well done. Now, why these 3 questions? Why do you think these have come up in particular? Another kid will be like, it's pretty obvious because it says, so because our scores weren't good on those. And by the way, notice that already, that they're saying our scores, right? It's as a group, that's the important thing. It's like, we're working on this together. Well, I say, yeah, absolutely. Now, there's a reason I put these up as the questions at the beginning of the lesson. Their homework is due Tuesday, right? So these are the questions that they see as they come in on the Tuesday. I say, look, I put these ones here because they're the ones you got wrong at home. And I want to see if you get them right or wrong in class. Because if you get them wrong in class, then what it means is you've sat at home, you've done your homework, and you've got something wrong. And then you've said, meh, I don't care. You shrugged your shoulders and you said, yeah, it's not a big deal. I don't care. I'm not fussed. And you've just gone about your business and done whatever else it is you wanted to do that evening. Finished. You then turn up to my class, and what you've said to me, you get it wrong in class again. You're saying to my face, I don't care about your subject. I don't care about learning this. I don't care about getting better. I don't care about learning more. I don't care about being better. I don't care about making you proud. I don't care about being part of this class that is doing amazing things. That for me is unacceptable, and it's not good enough. And you see, the thing is, I'm not at home with you. I can't watch you while you do the homework, but what I can do is I can give you questions in class that tell me if you've done your carousel quiz properly. And if you're getting this stuff wrong, you're getting it wrong at home, you're getting it wrong in class, you're telling me you don't care. I'm here to tell you, you should care and you must care. If you're getting them wrong at home, but then you're not leaving your computer until you get them right, I could not be prouder of you. You're doing the right thing. You're making a massive difference to your learning. You're going to get so much better at this. You're going to be brilliant. And I'm so proud of you. And I want to be able to see that happening in class. And then, that they might get that speech, 2 lessons in a row. If they got, homework due on a Tuesday. So week 1, they'll get it. Week 2, they'll get it. And then week 3, I'll start to bring the kids into it. And I say, why have I put these questions here? Who can explain to me why these questions are so important to me? That kind of stuff. And I follow up. So I go around and I check what they've written. And if I see they're writing dross, then I'll follow that up with them. Not necessarily publicly, but I'll talk to that student. I say, look, I was pretty clear about this. How come you're still getting this wrong? Sometimes it might involve a phone call home. Sometimes it might be that I keep them at the end of the lesson or whatever. We have once a week, we do after school session where they can sit and do homework in front of me. So I can check the way that they're doing it. It might be that they're just not sure exactly the right way. It might be they need some expert feedback about what the best way to quiz is or whatever. But this is an incredibly powerful tool for helping me do that. It's about taking the stuff that they found difficult at home and bringing that then into class. So there was one other part of that feedback form at the bottom that I didn't show you yet, and I'm going to show you how that works now. So I go back to the quiz, which is over here, and I press these 3 dots, and I press mark quiz. Now, don't get stressed out by that word mark, because it doesn't take long. So I press mark quiz, and I see all of the responses here, and I see what the students have written. I see the question at the top. And this question is about vertebrates. And the way we've set things up is so that it goes question by question, so that it's super duper. We could have done it differently, right? We could have gone student by student, but question by question is so much easier to mark because you're just looking at one thing and you're just going down a list and you're looking at one thing. Now, the first thing I can do is I can, moderate students' responses. So, student, as you know, in Carousel, students get the opportunity to mark their own work, but then the teacher can moderate that and change things to wrong if they think so. So, for example, this answer by Hugo. Hugo's written mammals, amphibians, fish, birds. Yeah. Okay, fine. Like Hugo's wrong. The question says name the 5 types. Hugo's given 4. I'm going to change that to incorrect, and I'm going to include that in feedback. And I'll show you later on what that means. I also have a look at Nadia's answer here. And I can see that there's a little spelling error here, amphibians and mammals. So I'm going to put that in too. I look at this and I say, what is an invertebrate? And I'm seeing, a couple of students getting this wrong, which is no good. Student writing, I don't know. This one's really interesting because they've written snails, worms, and insects. Now, these are examples of invertebrates, but they're not the definition of invertebrates. This one as well is problematic because she's written an organism without a backbone in its body, but trees don't have backbones in their body. They wouldn't be called invertebrates. So I want to talk about those 2 as well. What do I see here? Oh, this looks interesting. What are the 2 main types of reproduction? So now look through and everything looks sensible. This one is giving me some alarm bells. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to tick that as well because this is a bit dodgy, and I'll explain why soon. How reptiles born, eggs laid on the ground, in eggs. Yeah, they know that that's not good enough. I'm not sure I want to talk about this one too much, so I'm just going to push on. And now the 5th question, what frog larvae called? Oh, bless Hugo, it's not doing very well in this quiz at all. What frog larvae called? Quite fun, done. I now go to feedback here. And I had those questions that I had before. But I also have what I found interesting. Now, these ones, the students doing silence by themselves, these ones I use as a platform for discussion. So I'll start with what is an invertebrate, okay? And what I might do is I might say, mini whiteboards, write your answer or whatever, fine. And then I'll go show answer. And these are now the two answers that I had ticked before. So when I was going through, you remember I ticked things. These are the two that are ticked. And so what I might say is I'll say, okay, let's have a look at this answer, organism without a backbone in its body. And I'll say, okay, guys, why is this wrong? Now, and I might take a hand on it or whatever. Then the first thing that students will always say is, "Oh, just give me the right answer." They'll say, because it's an animal without a backbone in its body. But yeah, that only takes me so far. What I want to know is why this specifically is wrong. What's wrong with this answer? And a student at that point might say, "Oh, because trees don't have a backbone." But we wouldn't consider them invertebrates. And I really want to tease that out through questioning and through classroom discussion. It's a misconception that I want to bring to the fore. And the same applies here. I might say, and I'll say, a good way of doing this one would be, I'd say, why did the student think this was right? And then what I'm doing is I'm forcing the students to think really hard about what's going on here and the relationship between this and the question. And again, I might take a hand if a student would say, "Oh, because those are examples of invertebrate," or I might get them to do on mini whiteboards. I say, why did a student think this is right? I might do this would be a good opportunity for think, pair, share, because it's where the students turn and talk, because students have a kind of a hazy idea, but they want to flesh it out, maybe get their ideas out in the open. So again, it's a really nice way to build a class discussion, a class dynamic of it's okay to get stuff wrong. Yeah, we just need to make sure we learn from these mistakes. We then get to the 5 types of invertebrates, and here we'll do the spelling error. And I might ask students to just spell all these words on a mini whiteboard so I can check that they know how to do them. And then here we'll talk about the the fact that the student put that as right when it's clearly wrong. We'll put the fact that there's 5 and this student's only written 4. And it's, and I'd say that I'm not upset that people get stuff wrong. I'm upset when people lie to me and they say that it's right when it's not right. And it's really clear that in the question we've asked for 5, you've given 4, it's not good enough, don't do it again. Now, when I get to this one, things get a bit fruitier. And what I will do, I was literally, I say, okay, guys, why do you think I picked this one up? And no one's going to give me an answer. And I say, look, guys, I'll show you. And what I'll do is I'll just, give me a sec. Need to figure out how to share the screen like this. So what I'll do is right there and then in front of the students, I'll open up Google and I'll just paste the question in like that. See that? There are 2 types of reproduction, asexual and sexual reproduction. Boom. So what's happened here is that the students just Googled it. They've just tried to find an answer on Google and they've just pasted that in. This is a big problem. It's a big problem. Now, how you deal with this depends kind of on your setting, but you have to deal with it. You have to hit it on the head. And what I'll show you in a minute is the kind of way that I might deal with it myself in my classroom. Okay, so hopping back to here, what we've seen, and I'll get to the Googling one in a minute, is that there are kind of different categories of error that students are making, and your response varies based on those. So sometimes students are too harsh on themselves. So students are too pedantic almost, and you'll want to pick that up in class. Sometimes students are too lenient on themselves, like the kid who got the 4 things when he should have written 5. Googling, big problem. Misconceptions. Spelling, common thing that you might want to pick up as well. But also sometimes you want to praise a student. So students who are really rigorous with their marking, there's a spectrum almost, because at one end you've got kids who are too lenient and they give themselves way too much benefit of the doubt. At the other end you've got kids who are sometimes way too harsh, and there's a sweet spot closer towards the harsh than the lenient of students who are who are astute and exacting. So they know what's right and what's wrong, and they want to make sure their answer is very, very good. They know that it doesn't need to be word for word perfect, but it does need to be very, very good. And you'll want to pick that up as well, because you want to praise that, because you want all of your students to come up to that bar, to that standard. Here's a good phrase that script that I use for students who are too lenient. And what's really interesting here as well is that there's a lot of plural here. It's about us and we and everyone in here. like I said at the beginning, it's about that kind of culture as a class of we, as opposed to just a collection of I. That we really want to do this. We want to be better. We want to be good. And we want to normalize that. So, this is the kind of script that I might use for students who are being too lenient. Students who are Googling. Now here, it gets a bit more I-ish, because what I want to do is I want the student who Googles to feel like they're the only one doing it. So a good way to kind of add to this would be everybody in here, let's say you've got 27 kids in the class, 26 students out of 27 did their homework properly. One student Googled. You know who you are. You are the odd one out. You're not doing what your friends are doing, and you're not going to be as good at science or history or English as your friends. Pay very careful attention to me. And I want everyone, eyes up here now, because I'm now talking to everyone. Don't get any ideas. It's obvious to me. I can tell when you've Googled. I look in your work in class and I can see you're not doing your homework properly. You get stuff right in your homework and then I look in your book and it's nonsense. You're lying to me. I know. I'm not an idiot. I want the best from you. And 26 out of 27 students are doing the right thing time after time. Make sure you keep doing that and nothing else. And again, like what you're doing is you're like building that culture, but you're flicking back between the I and the we, the one student and the everybody, because you want to kind of raise everybody's game. Now I have scripts, and there's another script that I often use for students who have cheated, which involves calling their parents. We wrote a whole blog about it, which was very popular, and we'll put that'll be linked in the comments here. And I've got a table where I've written up all of these like micro scripts, and we're going to publish those really soon on the blog, and that will also be linked in the comments. And it's a table that kind of looks like this. I'm not going to spend hours looking at it. If you want, you could pause your screen and have a read of it now, or you can just wait and get the link. And that sort of brings us towards the end. And it's important to reflect on our aims when we set out to do whole class feedback. So I'll pause and let you just read that for a second. Okay, if you need a bit more time, just pause your video. Otherwise, we set out to cut teacher workloads. It takes me about 5 minutes to mark a class quiz. If say 30 students, 15 questions, it's about 5 minutes, just because of the layout. It's so clean, it's so clear, it's so obvious. The feedback is huge here because you've got so many different categories that you can give feedback on, and you get to give feedback about specific things they've got wrong, but also like everything, all the way from like specific things they've got wrong, all the way up to kind of attitude and persistence and the way they think about their learning. And then there's loads of opportunity for more retrievals. So what you found hardest, that's a starter. That means you've got 3 more retrieval opportunities right there, or 4 more. And then the interesting bit, you're using that questioning like to probe understanding, but it's also retrieval practice, because you're forcing them to like pull out or think about their own answers. In terms of accountability, you can tell what's happening and you make it clear to the students that you can tell what's happening, that you're looking at every response. By the way, you don't even need to do this. Let's say you set a 25 question quiz and you've got 30 kids in the class. That might take a bit longer than 5 minutes. So just like cut it off at 5 minutes. Just say, right, well, I just mark the first 10 or whatever. I guarantee you, after 10 questions, you'll have plenty to talk to the class about. And, the students don't need to know that you didn't mark every single individual question, as long as they think that you do, as long as they know that you are going to be checking their work. As soon as you start letting stuff slide regularly, they'll realize you're not checking it. As soon as you stop feeding this stuff into classwork, they'll realize that you're not checking it. And you'll end up, they'll just write they might see that you check who's done it and who's not, but then what they'll do is they'll just write nonsense into their answer boxes just to get it done as quickly as possible. You need to constantly maintain that standard of accountability where you're saying, I am looking at your work, I am paying attention to your work, I am reading your work, you will not get away with nonsense. I want the best from you. I know you can do it. I believe in you. And then and part of that is about this integration that we spoke about before. And again, if you want to know more about any of that kind of stuff, you need to check out the Retrieving Better document. Finally, I've got some further reading, and again, these will be linked in the notes. So these are all the kind of things that have that are useful when it's when it comes to whole class feedback. So Joe Corby's original article, Joe Face has got some example about the way that she does whole class feedback. Rebecca Foster's the same, Mark similar, Daisy takes things a bit further to look at curriculum. Ruth Ashby has some examples in science, and then I've got some things that might help you if you're planning, a lot of the time people say to us, yeah, we love marking the carousel quiz, but like our SLT is saying that that's not good enough for marking, blah, blah, blah. Can you help? So these two articles might help you. Marking Again is a massive roundup of the evidence into marking, and you can just print that and use that however you like. Anyway, I've been Adam, and I'm like I said, I'm the education director at Carousel. If you do have anything you wanted to ask me, some support, advice, tips, or if you have any really great ways that you do whole class feedback and you think everybody would benefit from, please just do email me. It's adam@carousel-learning.com. It's adam@carousel-learning.com. In the meantime, I look forward to seeing you soon, and happy quizzing.